Hey guys, again, this is Mark, and I just wanted to follow up on the video I posted yesterday in regards to the Black Lotus eBay transaction and the kind of dilemma I'm going through on that. I've gotten a lot of support on YouTube, eBay, and Reddit, and I can't tell you guys how much I appreciate that. Um, and the biggest thing about it is you guys are seeing things that I didn't catch on my first pass around, and things I don't know if I ever would have. The detail you guys are catching, I remember looking at the original buyer's video, and it looked so similar to mine, but there are more discrepancies that I've noticed, and I wanted to share them with you in this video, merely for the main fact, and I want to reiterate this again, that my goal is the salvaging of my reputation. My eBay username has been kind of put all over the internet in a way that I felt that I had to explain. Initially, I wasn't feeling I needed to do that until I saw the video that came out yesterday. But the first part of this video is an eBay message that contains some really interesting information um, that clarifies what I feel is a repackaging of my original package to the buyer. So let me read this to you. He says, hey, I just happened across your video about the guy who bought this Lotus. After watching your video, it looks to me like he repackaged it. In addition to the orientation of the two padded envelopes that you pointed out in your video, he pulls a Ziploc from the wrong half of the envelope. You clearly put the card in the bottom of the envelope before folding it. To pull the card from the envelope like he did, he would have to cut through the bottom seam of the envelope, which clearly didn't happen. In addition, admittedly this is less convincing, the seam on the self-adhesive strip has fewer wrinkles than yours did. I suspect the entire envelope was replaced because those things are impossible to open without damaging them. And he tried to copy your handwriting. It's hard to tell from the video, but the more I look at it, the more convinced I become. I could be wrong about all this, but to me, your story is more compelling. FWIW, I hope this works out in your favor. This sort of thing really frustrates and angers me. So if there's anything I can do to help out, let me know. So he points out things in his first paragraph that totally make sense to me. I included a snippet of the portion of my own video that I have me putting the Ziploc of the card into the envelope. And I of course do put it in the bottom half of the envelope. So if you were to take the envelope out of the box like he did and keep it folded and open it, you'd have to do it from the bottom seam, not the top seam. And he does talk about the flap that is on the top seam of the envelope that contains the card, and it does look very smooth. I think most people who package things in plastic bubble mailers know that when you remove when you expose the adhesive strip and you place it on top of the envelope, it's not always very smooth. I think that is evidence of some type of perhaps resealment. Maybe you can achieve that by heating up the flap and laying it back down, and he perhaps laid it down very carefully to make it very smooth. So those two bits of information, the pulling out of the envelope from the top and the wrinkleless flap, I think that should persuade some, but I guess that doesn't matter if it does or not. It's just me pointing something out to you guys that I found interesting. He goes on further to mention the handwriting and perhaps the envelope being replaced. So I did provide 4 empty envelopes. There is a possibility that the envelopes could have been replaced, but also the reality is these are very common packaging bubble mailers. Like I bought these in bulk on Amazon, I believe, and so anyone could do it, and if they have access to that locally, that's great, and they could probably do that as well. He points out in the screenshot I have now that the handwriting isn't exact. How when I went to cross the A, it didn't go all the way over. So perhaps there was some type of replication done in order to make it seem like that was the envelope that I made and wrote. I do think the text is much more. I mean, the pen ink is much more consistent than mine, and so I mean, this is not too convincing, but I also think that it is something to consider. Another thing to point out with the handwriting on the card here envelope is how my R in the middle of it, I have this weird intersection that's kind of convoluted and bold. And it's not as bold on the buyer's video, but it could be a resolution thing as well. And the kind eBayer who sent me this message notified me of the discrepancy, and you can see this in the video marked in green, how the left side of the D should be more consistent in relation to the R. So that's that particular thing. And I also wanted to touch base on how you guys are reacting. I do appreciate the support, but at the same time, I don't feel it necessary to attack anyone personally. And for the buyer, there is, people are using his, personal attire that he's displaying in the interview with Daniel Chang as a way to, find out personal details about him. And I think the best thing we should do for this transaction is to remain on point and matter of fact as possible. And let's say, some of these accusations of his character are true. The reality is, we don't want to piss anyone off. I mean, we don't want to set anyone off for no reason. It's, at the end of the day, it's a card. I know it's a lot of money, but at the same time, if they're true, Daniel's like me. We're both Asian. We're not white. And that's something you guys should consider, that Daniel's interacting him in person. They know each other. They're local to each other. So I think it's fair that we stay on point and let's try to look at what we consider the facts of the actual case, and any type of character attacks that we leave for another arena, perhaps. And in relation to Daniel himself, I see comments in the video on Daniel's channel that he should approach the video in a different way, and some people say a little bit more neutral. But personally, I understand where Daniel's coming from. If he actually is a customer of Daniel's, then I understand he's going to have this natural affinity to side with someone he knows, more so than someone he doesn't know at all, me. And as far as how the YouTube video was produced in that type of kind of one-sided perspective, I mean, this is YouTube. I mean, it's entertainment at the end of the day, I think. The tone he uses and the volume and the excitement, it's to create the drama that is necessary for some things to be successful on this website. You see it in all types of avenues. Like my favorite, like YouTubers, like I'm a really big Star Wars fan too, and like there's a channel called like Star Wars Theory, and I remember him saying, and then at the end of one of his videos, like he's going to do something he hates the most when it comes to producing videos, is creating a silly thumbnail picture so people would click on his video. And it's those things that we have to do that are kind of over the top, but when it comes to this media, it kind of makes sense. And do I wish things were a little bit different when it comes to like maybe the displaying of my eBay username or what have you? Like, sure. I was I didn't feel it necessary to make that video of me having to defend myself, because I thought it was a personal, private matter that we would handle, and if it was going to be made public, that it would be done in a way that both sides were explained, because Daniel had the video for some days, so I don't have any ill will towards anyone. People would say that my reaction doesn't seem befitting the situation, but we have to realize, or I have to realize, that the easiest resolution is the buyer reaching out to eBay and saying, you know what, I was mistaken. I did receive the card in question, and we don't have to pursue this further. And I think we can get to that point by being really conciliatory towards him and being respectful towards him, because we don't gain anything from, and I personally don't gain anything from being angry. I don't gain anything from lashing out. I don't gain anything from being accusatory. There is no solid evidence in either my side or his side's favor. So I hope you guys understand that. But yeah, I think that's a good follow-up for now. And once again, thanks guys for pointing things out that I didn't notice in the 2 videos. And like I said before, if other information pops up, I'll be happy to share it with you guys if you're interested in the story. Oh, I did mention earlier in the video, like, what I could do as recourse goes. I don't know if I really want to mention that kind of stuff, but for people who are sellers out there and you want to understand what you can do if you find yourself in this situation. Well, for me, from what I found online, and what just makes sense, just common sense, is you would file a police report, and the caveat to that is that I found on some law enforcement websites that they don't really handle transactions like this, but I think it's best to exhaust all your options when trying to defend yourself or trying to come to terms with losing money. So you would file a police report in the area that the quote unquote crime took place, which would be the buyer's jurisdiction. The second option would be understanding this is mail fraud. I think this is tampering, and the recourse for that would be filing a report with the U.S. Postal Inspectors, and you can do this online. So if you have a situation where there's any type of mail fraud or even, a lot of broad internet crimes can be handled with the postal inspectors. So look into that, and they have a website you can go to fill out a report. And the third option would be understanding this is online fraud. If you were to find yourself in this situation, it could be considered online fraud, and that is handled by the FBI. And you might hear people reference the way to report to the FBI as an IC3 report. So you can Google IC3, and it provides you with a form that you can fill out with the case details as much as you can. And what happens there is, I believe from their website, they will review the case and see if it's something that they want to pursue. And if it's not a federal crime, they can give that report to the enforcement agency that has jurisdiction over that particular case. So it might end up back at the same police department, but at the same time, we don't know exactly all the time where the buyer's address lies in relation to, is it a county considered address? Is it really within the city limits of the city police department? So things like that are options you can consider, but hopefully at the end of the day that any matters that are similar to this get resolved without having to go through the extent and going to, I'm not going to, but understanding that you lost money. I hope we can resolve this particular transaction where the buyer has a car that he's happy with, and I don't have to lose out on the money that he paid me for it. So thanks again, and yeah, I'll follow up with another video if it's warranted. Thanks.